So what is it about feminism that triggers people so much? I've truly wondered, because either you're for it or you're against it. I can never seem to find people who are somewhat okay with it, or they understand it and they don't care, they move on with their lives. But it's just a subject that truly engages people. They have such a strong emotion for it. And, women are not odd species. We are around. We exist. We have mothers. They're there. You go out in the street, you see women. So for me, it's so strange that they're so obsessed with us. Let us live. It's I come from a family where they're very feminist, but we never used the word feminism. So when I grew up, feminism was a slur. We only used it to people who oppressed us. So for me, it would be, if someone said, "Oh, I'm a feminist," I would only think about the white woman who was oppressing me, right? And when my father was a feminist, I never thought my father was a feminist, even if the education of it or the ideology that we had at the house is within feminism. I never viewed it that way. And maybe in my culture, we wouldn't use the word feminism. So I thought it was a bit conflicting, because you grow up in a household where this is what is encouraged of you. There was no difference between me and my brothers. I have 6 brothers. Well, there was difference, but the difference was, it was still equality, right? And that's what we want. Like, I don't want to be a man. I don't. I want to be a woman, and I want to be treated as a woman, and I want to have my rights as a woman. I want to be equally in the eyes of the law, But then you go out into the world, you meet other people who look at you differently, who see you as oppressed, and they actually think they're liberating you. It's called performative feminism, is when they center themselves around being your savior. They're extremely biased, and they look at it as they're going to save you, and they're going to liberate you from whatever scary monster they have decided you have. And that is usually for minority women, right? So for instance, me as a Muslim, it blows my mind that a woman who claims to be feminist can have an issue with my hijab, when clearly it's my choice. I'm telling you it's my choice. But the fact that they just think I'm not capable of standing up for myself, I'm not able to stand up for myself, I'm not able to speak up, they're going to overstep your boundaries, and say, I have decided, this is what I have decided for you. I think you are oppressed, and I think you are someone who should be saved. And growing up, it was saved from the scary monster that was my dad. My brother, they always thought that the Muslim woman is oppressed by their men. But what if the men in my family are the one liberating me? How do you expect me as a young girl growing up, you're trying to convince me that my family is the enemy and you, the oppressor, is my savior? It's such a complex and stupid way of thinking. And it really messes with your brain, because what it did to me is that I would never call myself a feminist. And that has been the majority of my adolescence. I always thought of them as, I didn't see the difference between the patriarchy and the performative feminism, because they were harming me equally. So one time I was asked to hold a speech for the Women's Day, which I love. And I said to them, well, I will hold the speech, but you're not going to like what I say. Because the most racism I have experienced is from a white woman. I can't even give you one example, one time, where a white man oppressed me in a sense of like actual racism from my day-to-day life or work-wise. When I was applying for jobs growing up, if I saw a woman's name on the pamphlet, I wouldn't apply. There's no way, because I have to sit there and literally convince them I am human. I am capable of saving myself, and you're not going to save me. I want to work. Just give me a job. Why am I here having to audition for my right to exist? And I don't have to do that with a white man. I think the reason is not because white men are so much better than white women. That's not what it is. I think is that they look at me as something so odd, strange, and foreign that they do not have, they're not in my business like that, right? So it's easier for me to then just talk about work with them, and they would hire me because of my talent or because of whatever it is. But for a white woman, not only am I there to show my talent, but I have to make her like me. I have to convince her that I am worthy of existing. And you have to be almost her puppet and make her feel good about saving you. Thank you for existing. Thank you for saving my life. Without you, I would die. It's so weird. Like, you're not saving me, you weirdo. I'm here for a job. And that never sits well. It really pisses them off when they know you actually, I don't have an issue with white men. I kind of don't like you. You are my problem. Because at least the white men, they leave me alone. They look at me as someone odd. They leave me alone. But you in my business. You are in front of my checks. It even happens in fashion. They write a t-shirt feminism, right? Oh, I'm so for feminism. They have their runways. The models are going with, the banners and, end the patriarchy. Yeah, well, let's end supremacy too while you're at it. But they're not going to book me because I am oppressed. And they think the hijab is oppressed. Some women are oppressed with or without the hijab. How about you just include all women? They're able to decide and choose for themselves. So obviously I didn't get to do the speech because it would go against what they wanted to hear. I'm not going to applaud you if you are the issue, because this is truly what I think. The majority of my followers are women. So if I'm going to talk about something, I'm going to talk about what is relevant to my community. I'm not at a board meeting with white men in their 50s. They do not exist in my life. I try to say I'm open-minded and diversity, but let's be honest, I only surround myself with women. And those are the conversations I'm having. And constantly, when you have to fight for your right to exist, it gets exhausting. So if you want to be a feminist and you want to be part of the change, then you should meet people for what they are, and you should not center yourself around their fight, around their liberation. Let's take trans women, for example. I know nothing of it. You have to, if I'm going to speak and be an ally for them, it's going to be on their terms. They're going to tell you what they need, and you do it and shut up and move along. Like, go get a hobby or something. You're obsessed. It's getting weird. It really is. And it's so bizarre. And it's just like any aspect they want. It's like whenever they think of women, they're going to save. Why don't you save yourself from your loveless, sexless marriage, Susan? How about you worry about your orgasms? You're not having any. You have a husband? It's a roommate. If you don't have orgasms with your husband, it's a roommate. But you want to go in the streets and free the oppressed hijabi woman? Are you dumb? Leave us alone. Honestly, like, it really, like, your life is a mess. You're in shambles, honey. If anyone who needs saving is you, right? It's always, when I grew up, I was a teenager, right? Every day there's like, Rawdah, are you not allowed to have a boyfriend? What's going to happen if you get a boyfriend? There are other things in this world to do than have a boyfriend at the age of 15, right? And they could not, I'm a religious person. Well, I'm practicing Muslim. I never wanted to have sex before marriage. And I knew that. And that is in my religion. And they used to they act as if my dad is checking my virginity every other week. Are you people stupid? If I wanted to have sex, I want to have sex. Who comes home and tells their parents? You absolutely lost your mind. And that's what they would talk about every day. Like, literally, the social worker was talking to me about how I'm not allowed to have a boyfriend. Not everyone wants to be promiscuous. Like, listen, and then you hear the stories, because girls, they talk, right? So every time my girlfriends were telling me about the first time they lost their virginity, that shit was not good. I've known handshakes that last longer. You want me to do this act and no one knows how to do this? And I risk going to hell? It makes no sense. And they're like, Rawdah, you are the one who's oppressed. No, people are having sex without orgasms. They are the oppressed ones. You should work on that. You should go talk to those girls about sexual health and whatever's going on. They have a bigger issue because this is literally a body. But a social worker, do you know how invasive that is? Hopefully that wouldn't happen right now. But it's things like that. And it's constantly this passive, aggressive, invasive, and sometimes extremely violent ways of trying to control you. And it's so odd. And they're trying to save you from my parents. I'm not saying Muslim women are not oppressed. And I'm not saying all Muslim women have orgasms and you don't need to worry about us. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying we got this. You are in no position to save me. If you think you're going to get some credit by saving Rawdah, you have lost your mind. I'm not going to get a boyfriend so you can think I am modern woman. I'm not going to do it. I am not going to take... And they will support you if you're aligned with their feminism. So if you fit whatever box they put you in and you perform like the puppet that you are, that's when you win their fight, right? So, or they'll support whatever they can understand. If a Muslim woman wants to take off the hijab and she's not allowed, like in Iran, they'll be very supportive of it because they can understand that. That is how they look and that is how they dress. But if a Muslim woman in France wants to keep the hijab and she's being oppressed by the government and being taken, her rights are being taken from her religious rights, then they're not going to support it. Women are being killed in Gaza, they're not going to support it. You have Native American, you have indigenous women all over the world who are being treated awfully. They're not going to support it. They're not capable. I don't think they're interested. I think they benefit from the patriarchy and that they truly do not want to end it. They want to be like their dads. They want to benefit because white women do benefit from the patriarchy to a certain extent. That's why they benefit from supremacy. That's why they uphold the system. And they just want to have their little piece of the cake, a little oppression towards minority women and telling you how to act and telling you how to be. You're not going to tell me my father's oppressing me when my father is the one who's keeping the lights on. That it's not going to happen. And it's always done in a way where they do not understand. It's like up talking down. It's so demeaning, right? So for instance, they can talk about, if you talk about, let's say you are someone who is a fitness person, right? So you want to empower women into living a healthy life. Then you need to understand the class differences, that some people do not have the right nutrition to be able to live that life. You need to take social justice into consideration. And the same way you need to take people's cultural backgrounds in consideration. And you also have to consider, maybe this ain't your job to do, right? Maybe the communities themselves can sort it out. And if you're an ally, whenever you're called, you respond. And if not, let me sort my problem out, right? Because the amount of people who stopped me from getting a job and who has been a hindrance to my success, it's you, honey. It's not your grandfather. It's not your father. And that's not so to say that patriarchy shouldn't end. I think it should all end. 100%. I think everyone should be equal. But I also think we need to look ourselves in the mirror and understand that the part women play in upholding white supremacy, that needs to also end. And for God's sake, you need to understand the person you're talking to. Like, I grew up in a household where revolution was the get. That's what we learned. So you think you're a privileged woman who hasn't done... I have more life experience than you. And you're going to tell me how to act and how to be? And feminism is also my right to be feminine. And it's mind-blowing that just because I'm feminine, I can be looked as less smart or less this, less... No, that has nothing to do with it. I think scientist women should be able to wear their heels and their lipstick and their beautiful makeup and be as stunning as they can. That has nothing to do with the case. Why do I have to look like a man? I don't want to look like a man. Men don't even look like men anymore. Leave me alone. It's so bizarre. I used to work at the hospital and we would have these meetings with the high-up doctors. And sometimes I would apply my lotion, I would do my lip balm, because those meetings are long and boring if you have never had them. It's quite dreadful. So my skin gets dry. And why should I sit here and be dried up like a raisin when I could just apply my lipstick? And then they would tell me, you shouldn't put your lipstick on because the doctors will lose respect for you. You make us look bad. You shouldn't be too feminine. And when I walk in, if I'm walking down and I have heels on, because I wasn't actually working with patients, it was like a project based. So I would come in from the outside and I would be in my heels and they could hear me walking down and they would have that an issue. Listen, I'm not going to wear those ugly ass brick shoes and walk around sounding like an elephant is coming for you. Yeah, here comes the hippo. Just because men can have respect for me. How about you don't think about men? How about you just dress however you want? And the same doctors, they look like dry raisins. Looks like the guy never touched lotion in his entire life and you want me to impress him? Have you lost your mind? It's so mind-blowing. And you're telling me I'm oppressed. You're the one who's oppressed. How about you go a whole day without thinking about what men want? Try that for a minute. It's so weird. You're so obsessed. And if you're going to save something, for me, that's what gets to me, because if it's an issue that I am obsessed with, it's what happens within my community, right? So I worry about the Muslim woman. I speak to the Muslim woman, and I understand our struggles. And we have them. Trust me, we do have them. And that's what I'm worried about. But as a white woman, why don't you talk about your communities, right? Free your vagina. Free yours. That's what you need to do. Stop telling me, why don't you do this? Oh my gosh, you're not allowed. You can't do this. I can't believe it. But that's how I talk to my girlfriends. We have these conversations. But I think it's a bit different for my Christian friend, because, I think Muslims, because we have our community and things are a bit different for us, I don't feel the same pressure. I know they wouldn't pressure me the same they would pressure her. But since she is a believer and we have the same rules and beliefs, I feel like of course I stand up for her. But I think everyone should look to themselves and worry about your freaking problems and stop trying to act like I'm oppressed and I can't do this, I can't do that. I can do the same. I can sit here and look at you as someone oppressed. I can laugh at you for having sex and getting no pleasure. Right? You think you're Mother Teresa? What's happening? I can do that. So it goes both ways. So I think you need to look inwards in your communities and worry about the problem you have. And you have, each generation there's a different problem. The issues my mother had are not the same issues I'm having, right? So if you're done solving your issue, why don't you go solve your mom's issue? Why don't you go talk to your mom and see how your mom and dad are doing? Yeah, that's all I gotta say. Now I'm tired. I need a latte. Bye, guys.